Today, we're gonna make tapioca pearls from scratch at home. Stay tuned to see just how easy it really is. I did a poll to all of my subscribers to see if they were interested to learn how to do boba pearls at home from scratch, and I was overwhelmed by the excited response. This might be in part because of the worldwide boba shortage, which will be continuing on for who knows how long.
There is a boba crisis in our midst. Fans of the popular tea drink may have to do without the tapioca pearls for weeks and possibly even months.
Personally, the reason why I like to make boba pearls at home from scratch is because I like to know what's going into them, and they're super fresh with no preservatives. In future videos, I can show you some fun variations that I will leave down in the description below when they're available, along with the full ingredients list as always. This recipe today will make 1 or 2 servings depending on how much boba you prefer in your drink. There's 3 parts to this recipe today: the making of the boba, the actual rolling out and shaping of the boba, and then the cooking of the boba. And one last super important safety point. Because we are working with hot ingredients today, adult supervision is recommended for young people. So let's get started. The ingredients that you'll need are super simple: tapioca starch, brown sugar or white sugar, and water. That's it. I'm always able to source a small bag of tapioca starch from my local Asian market, but the next best place to look would be online. And the tools you'll need are a tablespoon, a stirring spoon, a silicone spatula, a sieve, and preferably 2 different types of pots, but if you only have one, it's totally fine. For the first step, I like to use just a normal pot. It doesn't need to be non-stick. It's the type that you can just use any kind of spoon, because this one will get really messy. It honestly doesn't matter if it's non-stick or not. But then for the step where we're actually doing the brown sugar, I prefer to use a non-stick with the silicone spoon. I feel that works really well with dealing with the really sticky brown sugar solution. And then of course, for the actual cooking part of it, before you get to that brown sugar step, you need to have a lid for that as well. You'll see what it's used for, but you're definitely gonna need some cling film or saran wrap, optionally a knife, and then last but not least, again optional, and what I prefer is the small bowl and a plate for when we get to that section with the sieve, which you'll see later. And that's it. Pretty simple. In our pot, we're going to put 2 tablespoons of water and 1 tablespoon of the brown sugar. First, we're going to put in 1 tablespoon of the brown sugar, and then 2 tablespoons of water. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and turn it on to a medium-low. So we've got max, here's medium, I'm gonna go right in the middle, so it's a medium-low. And we just wanna get this to a really good state where all of the brown sugar has melted and it's almost simmering, but not quite. You'll see what I mean. While this is cooking, I like to go over and prep the area that I will be working to roll out my tapioca. So personally, I like to go over it with a sponge with some soapy water. Then I go back over it with a clean cloth that's just water. Then I go back over it one more time with a dry towel to make sure it's completely dry. The other thing I'm gonna do while this is cooking is I'm going to prep my bowl. So the bowl is simply, I'm gonna put some tapioca starch in it. When I roll out my little mini bobas, I'm gonna put them in here, and then that will prevent them from sticking. Again, this is optional. If you just wanna use a flat surface, you're more than welcome to. So we're just gonna give it a little bit of a stir every, 30 seconds to a minute, just until all of that brown sugar breaks down completely. Okay, so now that it has completely melted and it's just a nice liquidy solution, there's no chunks of brown sugar left. We don't want to let too much of that water disintegrate into the air because we want to keep that liquid in there. So what we're going to do now is add our first tablespoon of the tapioca starch. Give it a good stir. And as soon as you really start feeling it sticking to the bottom like that, okay? That's when we want to add our next 2 tablespoons. And I would also say err on the side of having your tablespoons be on the smaller side as opposed to the bigger side. We can always add tapioca, but we can't really take it away. Okay, so now it's really getting thick. We're gonna turn off the heat, push it off to the side a little bit so it stops cooking. And we're gonna add the remaining 3 tablespoons. So now we've got the first 1, then 2, now 3 for a total of 6. Give it a really good stir as much as you can while you're still on the pot. All right, we're gonna go ahead and put it on our board and keep mixing it in. Be careful, it is hot. Try to get all the last stuff out of the pot that we can. Okay, there's another spoon, and start mixing it together. So again, just be careful, it is hot, but time is a bit of the essence, so we want to work quickly. So in the beginning, we just want to start kneading it in there, little by little. Okay, so now we're getting to the point, it's a really good consistency. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe away all the rest of this stuff because it doesn't really add to it. And I'm just gonna keep kneading it. Soft, it's pliable, it's still warm, and if it got any more dry, if I added too much flour to it, what would happen is it would be really cakey and it wouldn't go together really well. Oppositely, if I added too much water, this is just perfect right here. Feels really, really nice. Nice and moldable as well. Okay, so we're just gonna roll it out right here and then just divide it in the middle. So now we've got 2, and then we're just gonna divide it one more time, so that way we have 4. Now, these first 2, we're going to be making our first batch that we're gonna be cooking right away. The second 2, we're going to store in some plastic film here to keep them from drying out. So we're just gonna take the first 2 and tightly wrap them in some plastic wrap and just put them off to the side. And then these ones we're going to work with right now. But just so this one doesn't get dried out, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap one of them off to the side as well. And then that way we're just focused on one at a time. So here's where you get your option. If you want to do the cut technique, let me just show you what that looks like. You've rolled it out, you know, let's say you want everything to be completely uniformed. You're just gonna go like this, okay? Really easy. You gotta work quick because the longer that these stay out, the more hard they get. What I prefer to do is just take it off like that. So I just take it off little by little, give it a quick roll, throw it in there. And or I take off a larger piece and put it in 2. So here's a piece that's left over, right? Again, I just break it up and I roll it in 2. I find that this technique for me personally works much better because I can feel it with my hands. I know exactly what's going on. And then I've got 2 hands working at the same time instead of 1. So just like this, boom, throw it in the bowl. Again, take 1 piece, break it into 2, roll it, and throw it in. If you want as well, if you're more of this type person, then you just do that. Because the thing is, these don't need to be absolutely perfect and uniform. The idea is these are homemade boba pearls, and it's probably just gonna be you and your friends eating them. So if you do wanna be absolutely perfect with everything, try to roll it out as straight as possible and use the cutting technique. But again, if you're just making it for home use and you just want it to taste amazing, then this way works really well and it goes really quick. Now that we've used the first of the 4 pieces, just take out 1 more piece. We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna roll it out, half it, roll it out, and half it. The best way for this one is again, just go ahead and roll it out thinner than you think you might need. Because remember, the other thing is when you're cooking the tapioca, it's going to expand just a little bit. So some people might go in and take off a big chunk and roll it and go, yeah, man, I want these really big boba pearls, right? But unless you're eating it with a spoon, it's definitely not gonna go up your straw, even if you have a big boba straw. I would say the size or half the size of your pinky nail. And the other thing that you can give for an equivalence of size would be the size of a pea. So if you had the vegetable of like a sweet pea and you peeled it, you would get all these little tiny peas in the pod. That's the size that we're going for, is exactly that size. So if you wanna have some friends over and you guys wanna have a nice chat by the fireside, rolling boba, then this is definitely a fun opportunity for that, because it does take a while. So maybe you've got some YouTube videos lined up and you wanna watch some stuff while you're rolling out your boba. That's a good option as well. And that's another reason why I prefer just to do the pluck and roll method, because I can literally feel it while I'm watching or listening to something else. And then I just go boom, pluck it, roll it, and done. Now that we're at this stage, we just want to give it a little bit of a roll inside the tapioca flour. It may look like it's super coated in tapioca, but that's okay, because we're going to give it a shake before we cook it. Don't worry, there's not going to be too much tapioca happening here. Okay, moving on to my next one, giving it that heat to loosen it up a bit, rolling it out here. Okay, got another one, here we go. So that's the single option. So we got the single option again here, or the pluck and roll like this. I really enjoy this recipe. I've tried a lot of different recipes, and the other reason why I really like this recipe is it's very versatile. You can add color to it, you can add flavor to it. You can add more brown sugar, you can add white sugar. The only thing that I would say troubleshooting wise that, like I mentioned earlier, that might come up, if your tablespoons are heaping, it might end up being that your actual boba batter is too chunky and you can never really roll it out. It's just too thick. Don't do heaping tablespoons. Definitely make sure it's very light when you take it out of the tapioca starch. It's just, you know, a light tablespoon, maybe even under. And then also make sure that your water doesn't boil out or it's not steaming away for too long, because then that liquid that you need to really get this to set and to be more pliable, there just won't be enough of it. So just bear those two things in mind. You really got to work pretty quick on this recipe, especially at this stage, which is why we're keeping the rest of that in that cling film, because if you keep it out, just like this piece right here, it's the last one of that bit of the fourth, that one will dry out quite quickly as well. Now, if that last piece, by the time you get to it, is quite dry, you can go ahead and put it back in with those other ones, or have another piece of cling film off to the side, and then that way it won't dry out by the time you get to it. You can always put it under a little bit of cling film while you're working, and then that way it will stay moist. Again, we're working as quickly as possible. Now, even though this recipe today makes 2 batches of the tapioca pearls, so 2 individual drinks, what I'm gonna do is this first batch, I'm rolling it out, I'm making it into the boba pearls, I'm gonna get them ready, I'm gonna cook them, and then while the first batch is cooking, I'm actually gonna do the second batch, and that batch is gonna go in the freezer. So I'll show you how to do that in just a little bit. Okay, so I'm finished with my first half, right? So I had 4 pieces, I've done 2, rolled them out, made them into the little boba balls. I've got the other 2 resting here. We're gonna get to them while this is cooking. Now this, we're gonna start cooking it. So one thing that I can recommend while you're rolling your first batch is to go ahead and put a pot of water on the stove and get it to a rolling boil. So maybe start it at a lower heat, just kind of get it going, and then when you know you're close to finish rolling your boba, then you can go ahead and put it on a higher heat. That way when you're finished, you can go ahead and just chuck it in there. The water's already boiling, ready to go. It's not that you need to get it in super quick. There's nothing that needs to happen between the time that you roll it and you actually put it into the hot water. But in terms of storing it long-term wise, I would recommend putting it into an airtight container in the freezer. But for this boba, it can stay out for a little bit before it goes into the hot water, no problem. But just to speed things up a bit, it doesn't hurt to have that hot water already ready. And then that way, when you're all finished, you can just put it in. Okay, so before we do this though, super important that you see this next step right here. Watch. Okay, so we're gonna shake this, just to make sure everything is coated. That way when we put it in the hot water, it won't all sort of melt together. Right, just like that. Next, I'm gonna sieve it either over the trash or over a plate. We're just gonna get rid of that extra tapioca because we don't want that clogging up the water, and you really don't need it. Now this tapioca, I'm gonna put back in here, and I'm just gonna use it for when I roll out my next batch. So as soon as our hot water is finished and it's ready at a rolling boil, we're gonna go ahead and very slowly put this in while stirring. So I'll show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so our water is at a rolling boil. Definitely stick with either 1:5, 6, 7, or 8 ratio when you're boiling the tapioca pearls. Now, this is half of our recipe today, and I have a small saucepan. It's about 17 centimeter. It's basically one of the smaller sizes you can get, and I went ahead and I filled it up halfway. So that kind of tells you if you wanted to go for a larger pot, you can do more boba, but definitely err on the side of more water versus more boba. If you have too much boba in a pot of boiling water, it just doesn't really have a chance to expand and kind of flow all over the place, and the liquid will get really, really gooey. It'll have a hard time cooking. So definitely go for more water than more boba. Are you ready? We're going to go ahead and put it in the hot boiling water. So in this technique today, I'm going to be stirring it, okay? This is different than the store-bought boba. This is homemade boba. It needs to be treated very carefully and it needs to be done differently. Right away, we want to get it moving around the pot, not vigorously, just very carefully, because with the homemade boba, if you just let it sit at the bottom of the pot, it will actually change its shape a little bit. Okay, so as you can see, as soon as it's in there for just a few seconds, it starts rising to the top, which is exactly what we want. So I'm just going to continue stirring it very carefully, just until I see everything rising to the top. That looks good. And we're going to go ahead and put our pot on. Now again, we want a little bit of airflow happening. So I'm just leaving a tiny, tiny little bit of a fraction right here for that steam to escape. Of course, lowering it down just a tad. And I had it around 7 or 8, I'm gonna lower it to 5. We wanna keep it boiling, right? We definitely wanna cook that boba for a good 10 minutes, but we don't want it to be at a super, super rolling boil because that just doesn't really accomplish anything. Boiling nicely, it's a low rolling boil. Everything looks to be going up towards the top, going up towards the surface. It's going good. So I'm gonna leave it here for 10 minutes. We'll come back and go to the next step. So while this is cooking for 10 minutes, I'm gonna come right back over here and start rolling more boba. And then this boba, I'm going to be putting into an airtight container in the freezer. Now, if this tends to dry out quite easily, just go ahead and also put that off to the side while you're working with this one. Especially in the beginning, when you're not able to do it super quick, we don't want this part drying out while we're working on this part. Okay, so here we go. Again, we've got the single roll. Okay, nice and round. Then we've got the double roll, which is my favorite. Okay. And we've got the hand-on-hand roll, like that. So again, you've got this one, the single. Here's the double roll. Gives you nice, smooth, round bobas. Chuck them in there. And then of course you can do this way. You got a nice round boba like that. And then as soon as we put those in there, after a while, you just want to give them a quick shake. That way they all get coated. Okay, so I'll just keep going. If you ever feel like, uh-oh, maybe this one's too big, no problem. You just break it in half, give it another quick roll, and it's good. Okay, next I'm going to move on to the other bit right here, take that one out. That really helps it to stay a lot more moist, ready to go. So we're just gonna finish this one, and that one, and then I'll come back in just a minute. Okay, so our first 10 minutes of the 30 is up. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off, and I'm just gonna keep it on the same burner. Okay, so as you can see, it is looking good. We got all the boba rolling around in there. I'm just gonna give it a quick stir, make sure there's nothing hanging out on the bottom, which there isn't. And at this point, I'm just gonna put the lid back on and let it sit for 10 minutes. Again, while I've got this going, I'm just gonna go and come over here and finish my last little log of boba, and I'm just gonna roll these out and get them ready for the freezer. So as I'm rolling out my last string of boba pearls here, I just wanted to give you a quick reminder that this is a very versatile recipe, as I mentioned. So if you do wanna go for that really, really dark black boba, having it look like it came from a factory in Taiwan, you can go ahead and use a really, really dark sugar or molasses type, or the easier option is just to use some black food coloring. And if you want to go for colors, you know, any color of the rainbow is totally fine. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, black, or clear. If you want to go for a really, really clear, because these are going to kind of come out a little brown because we did use a brown sugar, then go for a white clear sugar. So you could literally have every color under the rainbow that you want with these tapioca pearls. And that's one thing about making fresh tapioca pearls from home, is it's so versatile and you can really just change it up. Let's say you want to do a Valentine's Day theme. So, you know, you can do pink and red and white. Christmas, red and green, orange for Halloween. Like, there's so many options with this. You just add a little bit of food color while you're putting it in that rolling stage. So once you've gotten it to the point where it's really well together and maybe you just need to knead it just for a few more minutes, that's when you want to go ahead and add that food coloring, is at that state. And if you're afraid of it staining your hands, then you want to get some really tight gloves on your hands first and then go ahead and continue kneading it in. Either way, the sky's the limit. Definitely experiment and have fun making tapioca pearls at home. And we're gonna go ahead and strain out all that extra tapioca powder. And the second batch that I'm not cooking today, I'm going to put into an airtight container, just like that. That's it, we're gonna pop it in the freezer. So it's been boiling for 10 minutes. Now it's been sitting for 10 minutes. There's an additional 10 minutes that we are gonna keep it on the heat, but not yet. See what happens. We're gonna take the lid off and bring it over to the sink. Get your water to a medium warm to hot temperature, because we're not gonna stop it from cooking. We're just gonna drain it and rinse it, okay? We wanna be rinsing it in that hot water. Give the pot a quick swirl. Just make sure it's clean. And then just dump everything back in. Okay, just like that. Now we're gonna go back to the stove. Okay, now we got our brown sugar back. Now this part is total preference, all right? But here's how I like mine. I like to make sure I'm coating all of the boba with the brown sugar. So personally, I like about 2.5 tablespoons. Sky's the limit when it comes to how much brown sugar you want to put in this stage. Now we're gonna go ahead and turn the heat back on to a medium-low setting, all right? And we're gonna give it a quick stir, start getting that melting process going again. And in this phase is gonna be another 10 minutes. So that's a total of warm and or cooking, a total for 30 minutes, right? We did 10, 10, and this last stage is 10. And the idea simply here is that we're melting the brown sugar down, we're continuously cooking this boba on a really low heat, and at the end of this 10 minutes, it will just be amazing. Just so amazing, so amazing. Again, I just wanna make sure we don't have it on a high heat, we don't have it on a really, really low. We got it kind of just below medium, all right? We're not gonna really bring these up to a boil and get them majorly cooking again. We just wanna make sure that there's a lot of heat happening. What's happening in this phase is, just so you know, we got the boba pearls, right? They've gotten a lot of water in them. And at this stage, we're gonna expel that water and bring in that sweet sugar solution, right? So that's why we're melting down the brown sugar. We're not just putting it in a bunch of brown sugar and then just leaving it. we're melting it down and we're letting that exchange of the water going out and the brown sugar coming in while we're continuing to cook it for just a bit longer. Okay, I'll see you back here in a little bit, and I would say maybe every minute or two, give it a really good stir, just to make sure that nothing sticks to the bottom. Okay, so now that's been a couple minutes and you start to notice it really boiling, kind of getting out of control. We want to go ahead and almost completely cut off the heat completely. I had it at like 4 or 5. I'm going to go ahead and take it all the way down to what's called like a simmer. It's like the lowest setting possible. And at that point, again, just give it another really good stir. Make sure everything is all combined there. We don't want to start like majorly cooking it again. We just wanted to make sure we brought up that temperature, we melted all the brown sugar, and we're expelling that water and bringing in that sweetness. Now we're going to really let it marinate on a super low heat, barely anything at all, for the next remaining minutes, however many there are. Okay, it is ready. Take a look. Super gooey and just amazing. Look at that. So good. So I'm going to turn off the heat completely now, of course, and we're going to put it into our cup. Now, I personally like all of that extra brown sugar in there, but if you just wanted to pick out the boba pearls, no problem, you can just do that as well. That is definitely going to be coating the side of your cup. So rather than doing it that way, I'm going to pull it up along the sides. Okay, that way it's coating the whole thing, just like that. But of course, you know, push your bobas back down when you're all done. And today I'm going to be making a beautiful Tiger Thai iced tea. I'm going to pop in a few ice cubes here. I've got my hot Thai tea that I've been brewing. I put a little bit of condensed milk in it as well, so it's ready to go here. A little bit of evaporated milk on top. And hit it with just a dash of some milk. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a real quick stir and let's see how it tastes. You know me, I love Thai iced tea and I love a really good fresh boba tiger brown sugar as well. So this is just gonna be the next level. Okay, let's give it a try. First, let's try the drink, of course. So good. And as it kind of marinates more and more with that brown sugar, fresh tapioca pearls, it's gonna kind of have more of that brown sugar flavor to it. I can't wait. Okay, let's try the bobas. Oh wow. Yeah, so good. So good. Nice and chewy, really soft. It was nice to kind of get that hit of the brown sugar that came up with the boba as well. And now that I'm chewing them, they're super soft. A lot of texture, flavor, very sweet, of course. Really nice. I can't wait to drink this entire thing. I'm so excited. That is one thing that I really like about making fresh tapioca pearls from home. It's a good opportunity to relax and enjoy life, one boba pearl at a time. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time, your comments, your likes for the YouTube algorithm, and of course your support as a subscriber. I'll see you again soon. Take care.